What this space is designed to host and foster is a space where stories can come alive in really like their oldest, wisest fashion. And what that means is that we are, and I first saw this happening in Hawaii, so I want to give Juliana Hepp credit, and she got it from somewhere else. And the way that the design worked in person was that the youngers would make food for all the elders and they would feed them. And then the youngers would come and they would sit in a circle on the inside, and the elders would sit in a circle on the outside. And then the youngers who had questions, something that was weighing heavily on them or alive in them, would get to just speak what is alive. And then the elders would sit and listen and share. But we're not giving advice, right? We're not telling people what to do. And we're not saying, oh, well, when that happened to me, that's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're coming into the deepest kind of listening to listen for what is the story that wants to emerge through us to speak to what is in our collective field. And when I talk about this is where the deepest kind of listening comes from, and trusting that when you are a storyteller, you're a listener first. And you're listening for the story that wants to be spoken, and that stories speak through the language of spirit, metaphor. They speak through metaphor, they speak through symbols, they speak through archetypes. So I've seen the wildest kind of unexplainable magic happen when someone says, oh, I don't know why I feel called to tell the story, but this is what wants to come through. Lauren has been to these, and it's like, and then with that last one, was that not kind of mind blowing in terms of all the connect? I was like, whoa. So that's when the magic gets to happen, when you do that deep listening and you're like, I don't know why, but this wants to come through. And what we've found in our group is that it's not a matter of youngers and elders answering. It's a matter of whoever has that piece that they're holding in our collective, that inquiry of the soul. The braver you are with what you are tending, the more nutritious our collective deepening is. So don't hold back. You're in a really I hate to use the word safe because it's so confusing. A lockbox, right? I don't understand that, but you're in a brave space of souls that are really, aligned in the mission of deep listening and deep caring and tending. Can we all raise our hand? Are we all, am I in agreement? That was a big we. Some of you I haven't even met yet. I just assume that you're like connecting to the resonance. Thank you, Vivian, for turning on your camera for that moment. So we're in agreement that's there. So, at the end, if there's time, I might share an example of my own recent experience. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take a moment just to take a look at each other and hear everyone just say your name, and just where you're beaming in from. And then we'll take a moment to listen, and then we'll dive in. So Jane, can you just start with your name and where you're beaming in from?
Yes, my name is Jane Granskog or Granskog, and I'm calling in from the central coast of California and the delightful town of Los Osos, which is in the Valley of the Bears.
Great. Can we pass it to the other Jane?
Yes, I'm Jane, and I'm calling in from southeastern Pennsylvania between Hershey and Philadelphia, on the land held by the Susquehanna tribe.
Welcome. And Mark?
I am Mark, and I am beaming in from the land of Inside Out on the eastern slopes of the Cascades in Oregon.
Mm.
Terry?
I'm Terry, and I'm from the central coast of California as well. Different community, but same area. Thank you.
Welcome. Vivian?
I'm Vivian Fire, adding to the name story. And I'm on Ohlone land on San Francisco Bay.
Welcome. Janet?
I'm Janet, and I'm checking in from, I can never say this right, Anishinaabe, in a currently Ontario, Canada. So can never quite get, I can say it when no one's listening. So,
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And for giving it the effort of bringing those syllables to life. Lorna.
I'm Lorna, and I'm in Novato, Northern California, the land of the coastal Miwoks.
And Bridget and Murray. Brigitte.
Yeah, I'm Brigitte. It's German. Brigitte Kupfer. I'm German, but live since nearly 30 years in Australia, and here in Jajawaran country of the Kulin Nation near Melbourne.
Okay.
It's my partner.
I'm Murray. Hello.
Thank you. Well, yay. So we've got some West Coast of the States, some East Coast of the States, a little bit on the edge, and then all the way across. So we're creating this kind of constellation. One of these days, I really wish it'd be so fun to get to like be able to see the constellation that we're creating through our connection. So let's just take a moment and place your feet on the earth. Place your hand on your heart. And allow yourself to take a nice deep breath. And breathing in, allowing yourself to breathe in the gift of life. Just through your willingness to receive it, breathing in the gift of life as if it could massage your insides. And then exhaling out. And then one more deep breathing in. And as you're breathing in, really listening for what called you here. Do you have a question that is on your heart, in your mind, that you really want to bring forward into our collective wondering, into our collective listening? And just exhaling out. And one more deep breath in. Just feeling yourself root into this earth, whatever way that you like to root in. And really opening your senses to listen to your muse, to listen to the unseen world, to listen to the imaginal plane, to listen to your heart. Hi-hee-oh, hi-hee-ah-hee-ah-hee-oh, ah-hee-oh, ah-hee-oh. And this next time, raising your voice, you're on mute, but to sing with me and just finding your song and your voice, just opening our channels. I-hee-oh, I-hee-ah-hee-ah-hee-oh, I-hee-oh, I-hee-oh. And one more time. I-hee-oh, I-hee-ah-hee-ah-hee-oh, I-hee-oh, I-hee-oh. And so we'll start our time with a prayer of May all the words that need to be heard be spoken, and may all the words that need to be spoken be heard. This is our time of deep listening and answering the call of what is being called for. Welcome, James. Who has a question that's alive in them? Who has something that's in their heart, on their mind, that they can bring to us to listen to and listen for? Lorna. And we can collect a couple just so you guys know.
What is there for me to do with the rest of my life? I'm 79, and it's become clear that I need to simplify and establish priorities.
So how do I prioritize how to make the most of my
What's
life?
my purpose? What am I meant to do with the rest of my life?
So I'm listening for how a story might be able to speak to you.
Okay.
So how do I find purpose? How do I recognize purpose? What's another way? And if other people have ideas for how to hone our questions so the stories know how to speak to us, this is a collective practice.
How about how can I listen for the story I'm carrying?
Is that resonant, Lorna? Not quite? Okay.
Not quite. Moving in the good direction, but not quite. Because I carry a lot of old stories that are no longer really useful.
Right. So what I heard you talking about is, okay, I'm aware that I'm on the last final act of my life. If we're looking at, we were in thirds. Okay, so I'm acknowledging that I'm in my final act, and how do I make the most? And but you're also using purpose. Like, how do I?
What am I meant to contribute?
What am I meant? How do I?
How am I meant
I?
to? Not sure.
Okay. How do I?
What am I supposed to do?
What am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? How about we just put that one in there?
What about what brings my life meaning?
In this time, that's a possibility.
What's the story of my legacy?
Is that resonant?
How can I bring joy to my purpose?
I love the idea of including joy, but if I don't know, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
How do I listen for what's mine to do in these times?
Yeah.
Good. And how do I recognize signs or something along those lines too?
How do I recognize signs? I'm going to put supposed to do in quotes because I'm not quite sure exactly what that means anyway. But okay.
Historical language.
Okay, so we have an inquiry that's coming into our field. What more questions do we have? Yes, Janet?
I'm wondering how to free myself from the old stories and find a clean, clean isn't the right word, but to lay down the old stories and find a new path, unburdened.
Okay, welcome, Anne. Okay, so how do I free myself and lay down the old stories? Let me see if I can edit that. Old stories and find a new unburdened path. Is that resonant? Did I get it? The big things when we ask questions is don't ever let somebody else put words in your mouth, right? That's not what we're doing. So if something doesn't quite resonate, which Lorna did such a great job of really listening so that we could land it, because the more resonant the inquiry, the more powerful, the more easy it will be for the stories to come and jabber on about them. Vivian, I saw your hand.
Yeah. My question is, are we together living through the breakdown of a big old story?
Hmm.
And is there something brand new emerging?
You guys aren't going small today. Okay, so I have, are we living through the breakdown of an old story? Did you say of an old story or of a story?
Of a large old story.
Yeah.
Large old story. And is there something new emerging? Any other question? Mark?
Yeah, and mine, I think it weaves in nicely. It's in the cacophony of reality in the story. We talk a lot about letting go of old stories, but I'm feeling, how do I not let the cacophony drown out that story that I so want to live into?
Okay, how does this sound? How do I not let the cacophony distract me from the story I so want to live into? Yeah. Brigitte?
Yeah, I want to ask, how do we create the spaces and the language?
Oh, we lost you a little bit. How do we create the spaces in the language for
The nearly eradicated feminine intelligence?
the what?
For the nearly eradicated feminine intelligence.
Can I just put for the feminine intelligence?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I can put nearly
Oh,
eradicated.
no, you
I,
can't.
Eradicated. Okay.
I would love you to keep that in because that,
Okay. Nearly
It's
eradicated
yeah,
feminine
because the power
intelligence.
against it is strong.
Okay. Whew. That one gives me chills. Okay. How do we create the spaces and the language? That's a really specific inquiry for the nearly eradicated feminine intelligence. Any other questions among us?
I would really like to know more about Brigitte's story. It's so powerful.
We're not quite going into story like that right now, but I don't want to shut that down. So maybe if there's time somewhere in there.
Well,
And
I mean,
also,
the story of silenced women,
okay.
not her specifically, but
And don't forget that you guys can trade information. Like, let this be as community building as it can be. So, yeah, if you're feeling resonance with somebody, there's all these opportunities to back channel and connect to each other. And so, let us not be shy. Any other inquiries that are among us? Okay, so you guys got really high concept. You know, nobody's sitting here being like, how do I deal with a broken heart? You know, nobody's coming with like, my boyfriend, you know, told me I'm worthless and what do I do because I love him? You know, nobody's coming up with these questions. You guys are like going really big in your expansiveness. So I'm just going to land again that sometimes the story that is going to speak, it doesn't always make sense to you in the moment. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to settle in and get real quiet for a moment. I invite you to close your eyes and just listen for the story that wants to emerge through you. Listen for a story that wants to emerge for you. And the less you understand about why that story wants to speak or be spoken through you, the better off we might be. Okay? It means that there's really something that's coming through. So we're listening. Again, what we're not doing is we're not problem solving and we're not answering these questions. We can't answer these questions. We're letting the story be the vehicle that brings wisdom or guidance or insight or maybe a door to open to finding the answers. Are we all in the same? Okay, great. I'll be right back. Okay. Is anyone feeling a tickle? So I saw Terry and Jane's hands go up. And you're going to keep your stories to about 5 minutes or less. So you'll see me wave my hand at about 4 minutes, which tells you that you'll be finding your way towards the bin. All right, Terry.
My story is when I was traveling across country and I was only 23, traveling to do music and find a voice and experience freedom. And I landed in Texas at my sister's house. And there was unbeknownst to me, a family gathering. And my mother was one of the people coming. My mother was in the military. And we all, that dictated our reality. So on this unexpected moment, we all decided to go shopping across the border in Juarez. And so we had lists of things to look for. It was 106 degrees as we shopped and we bargained and looked for chess sets and pottery and beautiful woven fabrics. And it was an excruciating day. And the whole day, as we watched my mother start to ratchet up, we knew that there was a bombshell waiting to happen. So we're all being very careful. We didn't even stop to eat. It was a very long and exhausting day. And at the end, we got a cab to go over the border and pack up our things. And then we went back to the house. And as everyone, most of the guys did not come. And we started to open our bags and share our treasures with each other. And as everybody was doing that, I looked for mine and could not find what I had spent my money on and my energy and my time and my joy collecting for this trip. And I realized that all of my bags had been found or had been left in the trunk of the taxi. So all of the efforts of this day was lost. And having to walk on eggshells and being afraid always not to poke the bear. It was just kind of almost the last straw. And someone found a little bag and they said, "Oh, I think this one's yours." And it was one of the beautiful pots that I had gathered, but it was shattered. And it was my last moment that I just couldn't take. And in that shattered pot, I burst into tears. And I threw it in the trash and ran to my room where I was staying and flung myself on the bed and cried, which was very, very unusual for me because I didn't cry in that household. So I don't think I even came out for dinner. And in the morning, I came out and everybody's looking at me very expectantly. And they handed me this pot. And it was very narrow and had a small flute at the bottom and two handles on the side. And they had apparently painstakingly glued all of these pieces together. But it was really ugly. I mean, it looked like Frankenstein vase. And then I heard the story that there was one little piece missing, and my mom, determined, dumped all the trash and the coffee grounds and the cigarette butts and everything all over the floor in the kitchen to sort through it to find the one little piece that was missing. And they couldn't even put their fingers into the neck. They had to use a coat hanger. But so here's this painstakingly ugly vase, which really doesn't have a purpose anymore. And they're handing it to me like an offering, like, here, maybe this will make you happy and you won't be sad anymore. And I accepted it, but all I felt when I saw it was shame, because it reminded me of losing control. And I carried this with me for years, through all my 20s, and I moved a lot. And there was a moment when I had some friends come, and they were helping me pack up the house to yet another move. And a young man went over and he picked up this pot, and when he touched it, it just fell apart. And his eyes were wide, and he looked at me and goes, "Oh my God, I broke it." And I went, "Oh no, it's been broken for years." So this story has lived in me, even though I let go of the broken pot. And amazingly, a few years ago, the story revealed itself to me. And all of a sudden, I understood the message they were giving me was, it was a pot of love. They were trying to love me, and I never received it. I only felt shame when I saw it. And amazingly, that I carried it with me all those years. The old story fell away, and the new story was, I could go back in that moment and receive what they had to give me that I never heard before.
Thank you, Terry. Let's just take a moment and consider, because we probably all heard that story might have said different things to us. And so maybe take a moment to settle into, what did you receive from that story? What did the story say to you? And I'm going to place it into our chat box. What did you hear? And again, in this context, we're not doing commentary on the storyteller. We're really letting us just receive what did that say to us? How does it speaking to us about our life? So again, we all heard different things. Hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting to take a nice deep breath. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Terry, for bringing that story. Okay. I'm beginning to see the different, I had a teacher, he would say, I'm going to throw a lot of arrows into the audience, and different arrows are going to land in different places. So we're getting to hear and see, oh, what were the different pieces that arrived according to where we are in our own story. I recently read somewhere, and I wish I could tell you where, but I can't, but it was, you can't ever lie about what story you're in because you're speaking them all the time. And so it's kind of a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Jane Granskog. Did I say your last name right?
Yes, you did. This is a story that just popped in. And it's a story that was told by my father when he was a very young boy living in the Stonington Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula. He had to go to school, walking along the trails where there were bears and all of these different, and mountain lions and all of these things. And his mother told him, remember that whenever you're walking, that there's angels in front of you, there's angels behind you, there's angels on either side of you. And so this morning he was on his way to school and he was just really appreciating everything. And then up ahead on the trail, he saw a bear. And he said, there's angels ahead of me, there's angels behind me, there's angels on either side of me, there's angels in front of me, there's angels behind me, there's angels on either side of me, there's angels in front of me, there's angels behind me, there's angels on either side of me. And you know what? They changed that bear into a stump. So when we call on spirit, and it's a story I need to remember in these times of challenge.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Isn't that great? It can be, the story doesn't have to be big to pack a punch. If there's anyone that things that people want to settle in, like what did that say to you? Hmm. That's great. How big, dangerous bears or other beings may call out my magic. Wasn't that? That's great. When we feel protected, magic occurs. The power of prayer. Okay. Are there any other stories that feel? Blue is enjoying your presence. This is a foster kitty that has come into my life, and she determines how she will be held. And so once in a while, when she comes around, she's coming into your presence and determining she will be here. So
Mhm.
there you go.
Mhm.
Um, any other stories that are hanging out among us? Jane, that's a fantastically specific desire that was met. Good manifestation.
Yeah. I have a particular connection with bears.
Mm. Somebody's got something, I can feel it. I can feel a story that can come, but I feel like there's something else in you guys. There's something, there's someone that's like hanging around, banging at the door. Who's got it?
Well, I can tell a story about chutzpah.
Okay.
Not sure if it's, well, whatever, I'll just tell it. So the first cookbook I wrote, it was on medieval cooking, and the publisher was the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And when I brought the, at those days, typewritten manuscript in of the cookbook, the woman I was working with in the publications department, she said to me, "Oh, we have the dummy cover to show you." Oh, I was so excited. It was my first book, you know. She shows me the cover. It's called To the King's Taste because it was recipes of King Richard II, 1392. And then the Metropolitan Museum of Art in letters this big. I said, "Roby, where's my name?" "Oh," she said, "it'll be on the title page." "Oh," I said, no, no. I said, "I'm not leaving this manuscript here until you rectify that." And it was, the injustice of it was just appalling to me, and I was out of there. So as I'm walking out of the museum, I don't know if any of you have been to the museum, the big tall staircase near the Greek and Roman statuary, and there comes Brad Kelleher, a very, very tall man who was the head of the publications department. And I said, "Brad, why isn't my name on the cover of the book?" And he says, he looks down at me and he says, "Well, why do you want your name on the cover?" I said, "Because I wrote it." He said, "Oh, well, the designer, it didn't fit in the design." I said, "Well, that's because you designed it out. I'm out of here. I'm not leaving this until you rectify that." Where this all came from, I have no idea. This chutzpah. But injustice, it's about injustice. There's something, you know, my brother died in a mental institution, and it was a snake pit. And there's something about injustice that brings out this courage. It's just so powerful. Anyway, so I stomped out of there. I was poor. I was a graduate student at the time. I had no money. I had no lawyers. But I threatened I sent them a registered letter that my lawyer was going to sue, all made up. Didn't hear back from them. I sent them another registered letter. "I just spoke to Julia Child. She thinks it's outrageous that my name's not on the cover." All made up. And they put my name on the cover, finally. They found a way to design it in. So again, I don't know where this came from, but there've been, you know, a few other things in my life where this is just, you know, I just know. And it makes a really good story now. It's about standing up, right, for what you truly think is just right. You just know so deeply that there's something so wrong that you can't live with it, and finding a way to make it right. Yeah. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Right on.
By the way,
I think you brought a story to your own question.
what's my purpose? what you seeing?
What am I seeing? I mean, I'll tell you what resonated for me is when you said there's something about injustice that calls out courage.
Yeah,
You know that.
yeah,
You live that.
yeah. That's
And
true.
the chutzpah to not have to follow by all the right rules. You didn't have to have the resources. You didn't have to have the library. You didn't have to have the connection with Julia Childs. You just like called on the rightness of the moment. This is a great story.
You know, I realized many, many years later that my book was the first book that the publications department at the Met, I was the first author who wasn't a curator. And they were very used to the curator's name being on the title page. So it wasn't malice at the,
Right.
but I realized it anyway, no matter what, it was wrong. But that's how I realized that later. Yeah. Thank you all.
Next time we gotta meet at Lorna's house for some medieval food.
I don't have a story, but I listen, and it caught my ear when Leah said that you caught the rightness of the moment, and it was the rightness. You wrote the right thing.
Any other stories that want to be told? Yes.
Oh,
This
Jenna,
me.
Oh,
This I live in the country, and this summer,
welcome.
in just at evening, you can hear me, okay? I heard this very strange noise in the woods. It sounded like something being hurt or strangled, and so I went outside to see what it was. And just as I went out the door, this big shape flew over the top of my house, and I at first thought it was a vulture, but it's almost dark, so it's not a vulture, but it was that big. And I finally realized it was an owl, a great big owl. And I went out on the driveway and I'm listening, trying to find where this, if I can describe the noise, it was a bit like a strangling chicken. And I'm looking and looking, and this owl, I have a big oak tree, and she flew in under the branches. So she was only like 15, 20 feet off the ground and flew over me. And the noise in the woods kept moving. And then one of them came out, and it turned out there were two juvenile owls that would be her offspring. And it was a great horned owl. So you can imagine how big it was. And it still gives me tingles thinking about having these owls at my house flying around over top of me. It was magic. So that's my story. Yeah. I don't know what it means, but it was magic.
This is a great quote that you don't have to know what they mean, right? They can just speak. If anyone wants to, if that landed in a certain way or said a certain thing to somebody, if you want to place that or say it out loud.
Brings up the importance of our connection to nature and really listening to the wisdom of owl.
Maybe as simple as knowing that the wisdom of owl wanted to be with us today.
Yep.
Ah, great. I've got owl wings back in the whole story. I saw, oh, more owl coming in from Lorna, right? Okay. Bridget, I saw that you had a hand up.
yeah, I have a story how I came across Lilith. Lilith was with my partner and my son. He was a teenager, 15, about 7 years ago in Europe, kind of a longer visit, nearly about 5 months, Germany and family, friends, and then also visiting several places. It was kind of a bit of a pilgrimage, really following the signs and coincidences. But we had one last, the goal to be in Portugal in a community which was founded by Germans. It's a global peace research center, and they're calling also healing biotopes, which is about healing relationships from the core, I guess, from relationship between men and women, disrupting the patriarchal patterns, but also from there to the relationship to the land, to the plants, to the animals, sort of as a whole healing biotope. And yeah, I'm connected to that place because it's founded by Germans. And as a teenager, we read the book Fear and Capitalism by Dieter Thum, one of the co-founders, and very close to my heart. And at that place, when we came, so as the guests of the summer school, we were invited into the stone circle where we were allocated, or we picked a note from a basket with the name of a rock, which will be our rock for the time we were there, for the weeks we were there, to be there, to meditate, to connect. And I picked a note with the name Lilith and a little description. And I heard the name, I heard sort of, bit of something, but didn't really know much. And then the young woman didn't find the rock to guide me there, and asked someone else. And then it sort of started, and she said, oh, look, we do it later. Just go to one rock now and we find it later. So I just went to one rock. And after the welcome circle, she came and said, oh, you found it. So I actually ended up at the rock, which was called Lilith. And yeah, I was then curious about that story, and there were books there, and I found out a bit more about the story of Lilith. And when we, on the way out from Portugal through Spain, we talked about the notes which my partner and my son picked. And I first tell you, because I just actually thought I look it up, because the note said, I'm the wild daughter, Lilith, I'm the wild daughter of Namu. I was damned by a god that I never recognized as such, so he could never destroy my wild nature. I have not come to join in hatred, but to reach out my hand of compassion and reconciliation. And so this sentence was sort of, wow, this is my life, because I was such an activist and feminist fighter. I was so in my youth and political activist in Germany and fighting. I was a clinical psychologist in the psychiatric system, and I was fighting the system, and I was in this and enraged against, about this injustice. And I had a wake-up experience 30 years ago. I was in Arizona in California, and looking back, I say, the earth has summoned me. I really had that turnaround to love, sort of understanding everything's there already, nothing to chase. And that let me leave my career and everything. And so I turned towards love, and I came to Australia. I met my partner, and a year later moved there. And 5 years later, I became a mother. And it was all this journey has been exactly what that note said, that turn, coming back with compassion and to reconciliation. And then I heard the note my partner picked was the fire of transformation. And I thought, sort of like partnering in transforming patriarchy. And my son had the note, the healer, through who the healing comes into the world. And I just was sort of gobsmacked, so that is our little story. But, I asked the question, spaces and language, because it's really difficult to talk about it without making me to this big, I thought if I was a man and I had experienced this wake up in this flip, this transformation of consciousness, I probably would have built a spiritual center, but I became a mother. It was my descent from head to heart, from heart to womb, from womb to earth. So, and now I have to find the language and the space. That was the question. Thank you.
Just jabbering to myself over here. What did people catch? What did people catch from that story? We need a language to express women's experiences in the world. From anger to love. Bridget did create a spiritual center. How far we need to wander to find ourselves full circle. One of the themes I'm seeing today is that I've never seen it show up like this before. So, is that the people that have the question also have the story within them that speaks to the question. But don't we need space for those stories to be told so we can hear them out loud sometimes? The spirits of Mother Earth are always with us and show up in unexpected ways. Well, lovely humans, we've done it again. I think this is our third. Lorna, have you been to all three of them? Oops, you're muted.
I think so.
I think so. This was our third circle of elders, council of elders, and it's so fun getting to be with you guys in this way. We're gonna just keep doing it. You can count on this once a month, and I will trust our evolutionary nature that it will grow and emerge as we want it to. It will continue to be a free and open event. Jane, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just had one more story because you talked about the spirit of the stone. And this is when I had I've done this work with I'm a Mesa carrier in the Q'ero tradition, and I'm also a past professor of cultural anthropology. But I had a student that was going over to Australia, and he said, "Well, what do you want me to bring you back?" And I said, "Oh, what you just could bring me a stone." And so he went over there, and there was a challenge in terms of he came back and he goes kind of strange. It turns out, and he told me this story. He says, well, I was over there and I have these three daughters. They're all age 3 and they were playing in the water. And of course, while my wife was going to this psychiatric convention, and he was just watching them. And he noticed that there's this old Aborigine man that was kind of walking slowly up toward him. And the man kind of gave him this up and down look. And then he said, he held out this stone. He said, "This is for her." And that stone is my grandmother's rock. And it is actually sitting outside in a sand painting over the full moon. Because I am looking for my stories of what do I have to say about the stories of the grandmothers. And after having come back I went to the 20th reunion of the 13 Indigenous grandmothers, and I have some stories to share, and I'm not quite sure how I can share the stories of strength. But it's also about the ways, the Indigenous ways, can appear at strange moments and not anticipated, as long as we're alert to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did want to say for myself, the meaning of my story for me was to let go of the old story and let a new one emerge. But it came from the story itself. The new story informed me to let the old one go.
I can't think of a better last line for us to be with. Thank you, Terry. May the questions, may the big questions that we came for be answered. May we receive the wisdom that sometimes we just need the new story to be the antidote. And what a pleasure to be with you in this way. And this was, I think all of you know, this is part of the School for Sacred Storytelling. And it's really lovely just to be able to be with all of you in this way and to listen in this way. We do have a course coming up called Wisdom Stories. And so it is completely geared towards creating spaces for your wisdom stories to emerge. And it's about taking those hard moments and letting them come to life. And really is about replacing the old stories with a new way of telling it that has all the life force power that an initiation has. So that starts next week. If you feel called to that course, the link is right there. Don't let anything get in the way. Okay, if you really want it, if there's a blocker or barrier, you can just write info at Leah Lamb with your blocker barrier. We can play with your story. And that's all for me today. Any final things that want to come through?
I'm just going to say thank you to everybody, all the elders, for the courage in this chapter.
Yeah. Thank you. Is that, Mark, what do you, is that an owl that you've got right there, or a koala? I can't tell what's going on.
No, it's an owl. It was one
an
of
owl.
two birds. Yeah. You know me and my birds.
I love that owl is so with us.
Yeah, that's why I pulled it out. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
noticed that too. Lovely. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Leah. It's such a generous offering, and I'm so grateful.
Oh, me too. Me too. I always get to know you guys more. I had no idea, Lorna. Oh my gosh.
Well, you called me Sassy Pants. You knew something.
I did. I'm sticking to it. All right. Well, may you all take yourselves off mute and just do a little hoot and a holler and a farewell and a thank you. And the stories keep coming through. May they continue to have places where they can
Thank
be.
you for the stories, everyone. They were beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
feel like I've been fed a meal.
Yeah. Thank
Is it
you.
Yeah.
a medieval meal?
Roasted swan.
Flavored with chutzpah.
Extra spice.
And love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
blessed day.
You too.